everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and it is McFarlane Friday here on Big Baby Review. So we are actually looking at the last issue of his run on Amazing Spider-Man in the late 80s. So this is 1989, cover dated issue 328, January. So this is basically the end of what I call Vanilla McFarlane. So he was doing Amazing Spider-Man, pretty mainstream comic book here, superheroes for kids, all that stuff. He takes a break after this issue. I don't know for exactly how long. I guess it's like 6 months or something. I think it's with the birth of his daughter. Took some time off to, help out mommy and stuff, which is commendable. And he comes back later on with his own Spider-Man title because Marvel offered it to him. And, he wanted to write his own title. He was expecting maybe something, lower tier, C-list character, whatever. And he was actually given a new Spider-Man title, which I'll talk about next video because that's the next kind of Tom McFarlane issue we're going to look at. And talk about the production values and the differences with this real quick is that first issue of Spider-Man has the same paper as the paper in Wolverine that I've been talking about, which is kind of a thicker, better quality newsprint, and the paper seems to take the color really well. Doesn't dull it quite as much as the old paper newsprint that we're going to see in here, but still does absorb a bit of the black where it softens it, and I've talked about it before in prior reviews, but it is kind of, I think, my favorite kind of level of production value for, at least for mainstream kind of floppy comics, right? The monthly comics. But enough about that. Let's talk about the cover real quick. This is a kind of an iconic image that's been around for a while, since 1989. In Spider-Man lore, t-shirts, merchandising that's been used. This back in the day was just one of those comics, that seemed unattainable, and I got a pretty good reader copy here. It's pretty solid actually, and at a good price. I was happy about that. More issues that I've talked about, and this is probably in around the same time as those Hulk issues, or maybe just slightly before, but the weird cropping of some of the late 80s, very early 90s Marvel comics where they cut stuff off. Clearly this has been cut into at least a little bit. I mean, the actual blurb you can't even read. It says, I imagine it's supposed to say the non-mutant superhero, but it says the non-mutant like Sue. That's what I can kind of ascertain there. So there you go. So we've got Sebastian Shaw in this issue. We've got the Hulk. Obviously, this is the Gray Hulk before his transformations that we've been seeing in my Dale Keane Incredible Hulk reviews. And this is still within that crossover Acts of Vengeance, which, Tom McFarlane will never have to participate in another crossover after this issue. At least I don't think he does. Maybe at Image a little bit, and from what I hear, and not willingly. Had to be coerced a little bit. So there we go. Let's talk about this issue. Open her up. David Michelinie is the writer. Tom McFarlane is the artist. Rick Parker letterer. Bob Sharon color. And Jim Salicrup is the editor. Tom McFarlane, he does, cool looking images of all the mainstream superheroes, at least at this period, right? So he's done the Hulk before. He knows what he's doing. And the Hulk looks pretty darn cool here. I always thought it was, as a kid, it was kind of just a little too much off model how big he makes the head. But, today it's like it's a McFarlane quirk. I kind of accept it, and I mean I think what he's trying to go for is that like extremely close to Frankenstein look. He's exaggerating that Frankenstein brow, where McFarlane's Hulk to me always looked a lot more like Frankenstein than some other artists. Other artists have kind of the original Jack Kirby Hulk is very much based on Frankenstein. If you really pay attention to even that first cover, the face, pretty sure that's where he got the inspiration for the look. But yeah, great splash to start it off. It's got the big black border I like from that late 80s, early 90s. I think McFarlane may be the first one to start using it. I almost have to believe, I'm not 100% sure, but that he saw that in Akira or something, or in some Japanese comics. Because eventually I will talk a bit more about, I may have mentioned it before, but I do feel that McFarlane discovers manga at some point and does incorporate some of its little quirks and stuff in his artwork. Definitely, he talks about Rubble a lot, and the way he draws Rubble, I find, is very Akira-esque or reminiscent of that, right? Still a lot of storytelling chops on McFarlane for these issues, right? Just the same phenomenon as with Dale Keane, that they're still kind of, towing the overall kind of mid-shot Marvel kind of rule. But all these shots, he's got a way of framing things, I think, and cropping that just makes everything kind of look cool. It's a good idea, right? Focus on the eyes and stuff. He's got a cool little silhouette here that allows him, a lot of rubble to draw real quick, allows him to move on to, the next part. It's a deadline. he's starting to kind of master that cartooniness that he's using. Now it's looking better and better, I think, on characters, right? I don't mind the cartooniness, but some of it sometimes was a little bit too wonky or just didn't quite work. That odd, colorless or empty silhouette that McFarlane occasionally draws and that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. The inking is a bit odd here. I mean, he's trying something here. That's a cool shot. I like it. Simple, like a ship landing, right? Like you just don't have to show much. It's not a lot to draw. Has lots of impact, is dynamic, and probably lots of stuff that's pretty quick and fun to draw. And always you'll notice like overlapping panels and stuff, and just creating more even sense of depth with, as McFarlane has described it himself, is his design sense, right? He took some sort of art design class at some point, and he applied that to his comics, which makes sense. He's got a way of kind of picking that striking angle, in each panel that kind of really works. All of this, it's just Spider-Man on top of, Lady Liberty in New York, but it's all just moving and very dynamic. All the shots, right? It's got the speed lines in the back here, and just this super extreme foreshortening looking down on Spider-Man. That's like, it's not easy to pull off. I think he does it pretty well here. And he just gives us a ton of cool Spider-Man shots, right? And he's kind of slowly, I've talked about it, the costume has gotten blacker rather than bluer. And we're starting to see shots and making Spider-Man a little darker. Stuff that we're going to see him do more in the regular Spider-Man series with no adjective that he'll be given to write as well. If you don't know, it really does veer more into like almost horror territory, I would say. More so than, as I said, what I would consider this run, Amazing Spider-Man, as vanilla McFarlane. Not bad McFarlane in any way. That's a great shot. I think that's great. Good angle, and then they do the gag, if you don't know, but back in 1989 there was something called the Batman movie. Not the Batman, but Batman. It was the Tim Burton with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, so they do a riff on that scene in the movie here. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it for you here, right? But that's directly like pulled from the actual. I'm sure he saw the still shot or something, maybe on one of those Batman trading cards that they had for that movie. So much merchandising and so much money. Smart though. Yeah, so more examples of bad production value for Marvel and around this time, right? Just because there's so much black ink accumulating on this page. As these pages are closed together for a long time, well, that ink starts to kind of seep in on the other page there. So not completely ruining the art. I can still see it, but I mean, it's just unfortunate. Oh, and at this period, Spider-Man is flying because he has the power cosmic during this crossover. So he's got like super cosmic powers. Look it up. It's like it's a thing in the Marvel universe. Pretty good foreshortening. All these shots here, just extreme angles. McFarlane developing that style more and more. I think like, a character like Spider-Man lends itself to that. I think the fact that he worked on Spider-Man made or forced McFarlane to work out foreshortening and those kind of different angles, right? From drawing Spider-Man over and over, making them different and interesting. And again, had to push himself. So he definitely applied some of that later on when you see the early Spawn issues. Yeah, these are kind of like the less stellar kind of cartooning for McFarlane, right? Very dated kind of late 80s look to everybody too. It's kind of funny. And he's really using that dark panel, the thick border panel all throughout this issue. So Spider Sense goes off. We got the Hulk showing up. Funny enough, not any kind of huge splash for the actual, introduction of the Hulk in this issue. Still get some great Spider-Man shots. I guess he's the star of the series, right? So you got to put the focus on him. But yeah, so in any other case, a fight between the Hulk and Spider-Man would not go well for Spider-Man, but he's got the power cosmic, right? That's the caveat that we've got in this issue, and that'll lead to kind of a weird situation, I guess a gag, kind of. Don't know how funny it is. These cool shots too, again, those close-up crops with the twisted McFarlane hands. Really seeing McFarlane in this issue coming into his own. Slowly but surely. Almost at peak McFarlane. We're pretty darn close. You know, I might have to bite my tongue when I go to the Spawn issues, because I do know that McFarlane was one of the guys who I don't think skimped that much on the storytelling once he moved over to doing his own series. Spawn at Image, I think Rob Liefeld did more of that. You know, once he moved on to Youngblood, it was almost only big panels and splash pages and things. But McFarlane was always pretty solid in the storytelling overall and throwing in lots of panels. So I do think in Spawn he kind of maintained, maybe not to this level, but he did keep doing that. And hey, he's doing you know, we can almost credit him with the vertical panel, right? Love those. Hard to pull off. I've said it before. It's hard to crop a long vertical panel. Crop it properly. Another great t-shirt image for Marvel. Oh, we got kids smoking here. That's not good for you. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if we'd see that in modern Marvel comics. I doubt it. Still hoping Wolverine and Nick Fury and the Thing start smoking again. Maybe in the movies. This new Fantastic Four movie apparently at least partly takes place in the 60s. So it would make sense if Ben Grimm, the Thing, was smoking a big cigar back then. No one would have said anything about it. Actually, we should see lots of people smoking in that movie. I feel like that's forgotten when they show, you know, period movies these days. No one's smoking. Everyone was smoking in like I guess from the 30s on, 20s on. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s. Just a full page here of vertical panels. And I feel like in this case, it's maybe a Deadline issue, right? He widens out for the actual maximum impact shot, which is where Spider-Man punches the Hulk up into space, basically. I'll get to that. But, you know, if you just show this, you don't have to draw the whole face of the Hulk being super angry, right? If all you do is crop this and just have a bit of Spider-Man, enough information where you see the hands and he's going to punch him, it's clear. We can see that. And you see the kids' reactions back here. You know, there's a whole part of Spider-Man and that you don't have to draw. And you can have a much bigger image as well instead of a closer, cropped, you know, square, rectangular, regular comic book panel. So he's just using it here, well cropped here. Obviously the Hulk makes sense that he'd be all within the frame, but all of these are just very quick to draw. It's smart storytelling and in a Deadline context is how I'd put it, I guess. So yeah, he's pushed him off into space, and this is actually not good for the Hulks because he does need to breathe, right? So obviously Spider-Man's a good guy. He's not going to leave the Hulk to die out in space. This panel here just always confused me. This one here. I don't know if that's McFarlane or not. It's just a very odd panel in the whole sequence and stuff, and the style of it. Like, I get it can be a bit rougher because we're trying to give him that sense he's flying off really fast and the speed lines and all that, but there's just something that just doesn't ring McFarlane when it comes to this. Maybe the actual spider logo, but other than that, it doesn't feel very much like a McFarlane drawing. So just curious if anyone would have any kind of information of what happened in this panel. It's been bugging me since, you know, the 90s, basically. So we've got some more cool overlapping panels. I think that always works really well here. Creates that depth once again. Like, he's just overlapping everything. Even this bit of these two characters, Hulk and Spider-Man, on re-entry, right? And then this probably wasn't Wizard, and it's like it's quirkily drawn a little bit. Like, there's moments where McFarlane just, I wouldn't say he rushes things, but he makes it even more kind of almost daily strippy and slightly more cartoony. But like, just this whole silhouette of the Hulk I think is great. You know, Spider-Man's kind of odd posture. Just a great image here. These costumes, do people actually dress this way? The answer is yes. And of course we've got another in the same issue, hand and eye shot of someone, you know, being angry or plotting or something. Works, but you know, the McFarlane mangled hand and the eye, it's a motif we'll see a lot of. It is kind of interesting to have it done twice in the same issue, but it's a good trick, I guess, and it works. Gets the idea across of someone scheming. So that is it for McFarlane on Amazing Spider-Man. pretty good issue visually, some great artwork, and that will only continue on Spider-Man. I feel like he pushes himself even more in Spider-Man, and again goes into darker territories, which pushes the art into darker, gorier territories, which is cool. It's the kind of stuff I liked and still like today, and that leads eventually into Spawn, which, you know, again will be in and around those first issues, peak McFarlane. So we'll be seeing those a little bit later. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any kind of tidbits and answers to questions I've asked here in this issue, please let me know in the comments. And I hope everyone out there has an awesome day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.